Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the C3 Show podcast, minus Mike. That's right, we were down one guy today, but you're still hanging with Kyle, Josh, and Turnus. Let's do some, talk about comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we going on this? What's going on in comics?
Big story is they're giving the Joker an origin. And I know, Turnus, you're a big Joker guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know from previous conversation that you don't know that much about it. So allow me to fill you in a little bit on it.
Please.
Essentially what it's, and obviously this is Scott Snyder that we're talking about, so this could all be just a ruse, just him playing around with it, whatever it is. But essentially what they're making it is, they're making him, now everybody's saying they're giving him an origin, but I don't think they're really giving him an origin as much as they're adding to him.
Okay.
Because they're making him supernatural. Like, it's, essentially they're showing photos of Gotham from years and years ago, and like his silhouette is there. So the idea is that he's been around for a lot longer than we think he has. So essentially, kind of what it seems like is more so like he's the devil incarnate.
Okay.
And if you've been reading Batman in the back, they've kind of had these one-off, this unrelated story to. Well, it's related, but it's different. Essentially, it started out with all these inmates, and they were talking about how they abducted this doctor, and they're telling this doctor, well, this guy told us to do all these things, and it turns out to be the Joker that was telling them to do it. And they all recount these very supernatural stories, which didn't make sense when they first aired it, because it was like, oh, well, these guys are just crazy.
Right on.
And now it's kind of seeming more and more like it's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is that there's this toxin, like you've seen. Obviously, they've been taking over the Justice League and everything.
Yep.
The idea is that this toxin makes him stronger. Like, last issue, I still need to read the most current one, but the last issue, he straight up Jim Gordon shot him in the face, and he got up.
Okay.
And also, he's got his face back.
Okay.
And apparently it all happens to do with his jellyfish, which apparently makes everybody else sick, gives him the Joker grin, lets him control him, but makes him stronger.
Okay.
So, and also, in one of the newer issues, actually, too, they revealed that the Joker had been a guy working at the asylum the whole time. Mm-hmm. Like, they thought he was gone this whole time, but he was Eric something. I can't remember what name they gave him, but he was this, he revealed that he had been, ever since the events of, Death of the Family, ever since those events, he'd actually been undercover, kind of, as a guy at Arkham Asylum, keeping an eye on everything, so he never really left.
Yeah.
So now with that huge pot that I just handed you of all this crap, all these cliff notes, and probably not all 100% accurate, but basically the gist of it, let's take it, first step, how do you feel about the fact that, like I said, not so much an origin, but the fact that he's supernatural?
It's tough to say. I like the idea behind it because what's so great about the Joker to me is that, it all goes back to the Killing Joke and the whole one bad day thing. Everybody's just one bad day away from being the Joker. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what gives him that attraction, is like, he's Batman on the opposite side of the coin, Mm-hmm. And they always say that, that Bruce went one way, Joker went the other, but it's a difficult idea to wrap my head around because the Joker kind of already is supernatural.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like saying Batman was supernatural because he willed his body into the condition that it's in,
Yeah.
I mean, the Joker already has that, like one of the.
But like I said, the idea is now that he's been he's been around hundreds of years.
Yeah, I don't really like that idea.
Because the issue ends, the newest one issue ends with him talking to the Court of Owls, with Batman talking to the Court of Owls and says, we have to talk, with the idea, obviously they had that whole thing where they could bring bodies back from the dead, that they might somehow be involved with the Joker. You know, the idea that maybe there's multiple Jokers, maybe there's, you know.
I like it in a sense of, like, the idea that maybe the spirit of the Joker has always been around, because, like you said, he's kind of the devil incarnate. I mean, that's... Mm-hmm. There's always some version of the Joker in the world, you know? I like that idea. But to say it's actually him changes the game entirely, and I don't really know if I like that or not, because it's... The Joker is such a mystery. I mean, to add to his character, and not that you can't do it, but to add to his character is such a undertaking. You have to take it be very careful, take it very seriously. You can't just kind of throw stuff on it, but, oh, now he does this, or now he does this, you know. Mm-hmm. It has to be something that's going to be real, and it's going to have to stick. And kind of, I don't know, maybe not touch on that, but to kind of roll off of that, one thing that I always liked, a cool observation I read about the movie The Dark Knight, is that basically the Joker is to the viewer what Batman is to all the bad guys in that movie. I mean, whenever you think everything's perfect and lined up and it's going your way, Joker shows up to screw with Batman's plans, which is exactly how Batman operates to all the villains in Gotham. Everything's going fine. Batman shows up seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, and that's kind of what makes the Joker so attractive, is he's always one step ahead of the game, but you never really know quite how he does it. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird situation. I mean, it sounds great. Obviously, he said Snyder's is doing it. I trust what he's done with Batman. Everything I've read's been great so far. But it's still really tricky.
That's what I really like about it. Like what you just said is that the fact that he did something that I don't know how to feel about.
Yep.
You know, it's like, because it's very cool, because the Court of Owls, home run.
Yep.
I doubt there's anyone that reads or, you know, that is not a fan of, they might not have liked the books or the way Snyder writes,
right? But
I don't know of anyone who isn't like Court of Owls. That's a home run idea.
The idea is great, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the execution that you got to be careful with.
Right, and you know, yeah, I get it. Some people don't like the way certain writers put things together. I really like Snyder. Mm-hmm. But, Josh, what do you think?
The other aspect of it is with Batman, compared to most other comics, you know, give or take a little bit, for the most part, Batman's realistic. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it's not, you know, there's no one that has mutant powers. For the most part. I mean, yeah, there's some unbelievable things, but for the most part, it's pretty believable.
Yep.
You know,
typical most. It's either a fear toxin or it's science.
You know, exactly.
There's very few unexplained, right? There's very few unexplained things.
Yeah, so it's it's something that can happen in real life, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Yep, this guy's been around for hundreds of years. He can get shot in the face and not die."
Yeah,
not a fan of that. You know, that's the whole thing with the Batman universe, is it's believable.
Yep.
You know, like, the bad guys aren't invincible, Batman's not invincible. Because the whole reason I like Spider-Man is because, you know, he's a superhero, but he's not, you know, invincible.
He's
like,
quote-unquote real.
Exactly, you know, but Batman even more so.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't have any superpowers per se, but he has a lot of money and a lot of training, which makes him, you know, whatever. It's believable.
Batman's superpower essentially is like his willpower.
Yep. You know, anyone could be Batman with enough money and training.
Yeah. Well, not really, but yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. Anyone can get the concept out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they're, you know, when you go and throw those supernatural elements into it, just kind of turns me off, you know, onto it.
Yeah. I really like it. I'm not 100, and I personally think that it's not that mm-hmm. It's going to be something related to the Court of Owls, with either the Joker is in the Court of Owls or they've been helping him, giving him this juice or whatever, or something like that.
And I'm all for that. Like, if they're playing it up to have it be revealed as like a story element down the road, that's totally awesome. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, which I think is what it is because that's also kind of Snyder's deal, is that he likes to, like, pretty much at the spoilers, at the end of Court of Owls, he introduced a guy that could be Bruce Wayne's brother, which, I mean, they didn't 100% say no, but they pretty much said it's not.
Yep.
You know, it just happened to be a guy who found out who Batman was and found out that he had a brother, which he did, if you don't know, in the New 52 realm of things. I can't 100% remember how he died, but he had a brother that died when he was very, very young. So we get the just that he never knew this brother.
Right.
Which, and hey, what if that's the Joker?
That'd be cool.
How would you feel about that if Batman and the Joker were brothers? Because they always say that, and that fits in with the Court of Owls too, because Dick Grayson was chosen by the Court of Owls to be a Talon.
Mm-hmm.
What if Joker was the chosen one, and he turns out to be a Wayne?
Yep,
that'd be pretty awesome.
That'd be
the yin and yang. That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be the second. I think the second best way. The first best way, in my opinion, is how Flashpoint Paradox did it, but that's an alternate reality, and Batman as it stands can't happen that way.
You want Batman with the guns?
Yeah, I mean,
as Thomas Wayne as
Batman, and spoiler alert. I thought this is the best part. Is so if you haven't seen the movie, just go watch it right now because it's awesome. But in any case, Batman in that universe, Bruce actually dies. Their kid dies, and it fucks his parents mentally up so bad that Thomas Wayne becomes Batman, and he's using guns. He's an alcoholic. He doesn't really give a damn anymore. He just he wants to fight crime and his rules. But the best part is the mother, his wife, becomes the Joker. So they're in that constant struggle, and you can't that's your wife, that's your husband. But I think the Joker in that universe, she preyed on kids because her kid died, which gives it that extra creepy,
messed up element.
Yeah,
yep.
And it's so good. It's my favorite version, but alternate reality that exists in that aspect only. So.
And what it also made me think of was whatever happened to the Dark Knight, or what's that book called?
Whatever happened to the Caped Crusader.
Whatever happened to the Caped Crusader? Because essentially, what that one is that, like you said, that he's Batman in all these universes. Because the idea is that if you've never read the book, is that there's a funeral, there's Batman's funeral, and all the villains show up for it. Yep. Joe Chill is there, which he was dead in the comics at that point, wasn't he?
Yep.
I don't know if he is in New 52 continuity. I don't know if they've touched on that. But he was back, and you're kind of like, well, what's this all about? And it kind of... It essentially goes through all these villains telling the story of how they killed Batman. And you're kind of like, oh, this is just all these guys' fantasy. But no, it turns out they're all true.
Yep.
Because it's the cycle of Batman, with the idea that every time he dies, he's reborn into, whether you want to call it another universe, or the universe resets, whatever it is, and then his reward for being Batman is that time he gets to spend with his parents until he's 10.
Yeah, until he's like 8
until 8 or 9 or whenever his parents die. The concept of the Joker being the devil, I think, puts a whole nother twist on that.
It does.
It puts him in some kind of purgatory, temptation, kind of a weird, cool loop.
Yep.
Which, like I said before, I don't think that's what they're gonna 100% go with, but that's just kind of a neat, nifty idea.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's take it a step further. What would you do with Joker at this point? I mean...
that's the thing. What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean,
Joker's his most well-known enemy.
Well, I would touch the bat. Okay. Writer-wise, I wouldn't be afraid to write for Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I would be afraid to write anything substantial for Joker, which is what I give Scott Snyder a lot of credit for.
Yep.
I could write a Joker, a story with the Joker in it, what's the Injustice Society? The Lex Luthor thing where he, the Joker just shows up and he's a part of it, or just one of his standard schemes and stuff like that. But adding anything to that mythos is...
It's a scary thing to do.
It's a very scary thing to do. In Batman, it's kind of scary, but not so much, because even recently, I think, if you look at it, Batman from the time of his... the time of his creation to about, I want to say, the 60s or 70s, there wasn't a lot that was introduced.
Right.
Now that's not to say, probably some Batman historian's gonna say you know nothing, which I'll agree with you that I am not 100% infused with all of that version of him, but
what I think
nothing like of his story has stuck.
Right.
Like we've introduced characters, we've gotten Batarangs, Batmobiles. We've gotten stuff that's kind of built the base of it, but we haven't really gotten a continuity, if you will.
Once Neil Adams started kind of doing the artwork, that's why that's such a huge influential time too, because
Right.
Neil Adams was the first one to define the look of the Batman. Like when you think of the earliest Batman, you don't think of the 1939 version. It's generally, for me speaking, the blue and black version.
Right. Yeah.
I mean that there's a reason for that, because that was one of his most influential times. One of the best times to be a Batman fan.
And that's when we started getting the real backstory. That's when
Mm-hmm.
Dick Grayson became Nightwing. That's when not all in that same time, but around that time, that's when his whole universe started to change.
That's
and
when
it
those
really
seeds were
changed.
planted.
Yeah, into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And he went from having just one sidekick. You could argue, Batgirl and Batwoman, but they really, once again, they didn't really stick around. They just kind of showed up and then left. But now if you look at him, now he's got Dick Grayson, he's got Jason Todd,
Mm-hmm.
he's got why do I always forget the third one? Oh my god, Tim
Drake.
Tim Drake, who Red Robin, who's actually one of my favorites. And then he's got his son.
Yep.
And now he's got Bluebird, what's her name, Harper Row.
Yep.
And they got, Stephanie the Spoiler, and then you've got Stephanie Brown. Who's the other Batgirl? I mean Barbara Gordon, but there was that other one. Sandra Kane. So I mean he's got this huge family. His rogues gallery is bigger than ever.
Yep.
So God, what was I talking about? Like I kind of
essentially what you're going for is Batman.
It's more acceptable to add things to Batman.
Batman is steeped in history and more established than the Joker is.
Right, where Joker we didn't, and that's a big thing too that a lot of people don't really realize is that they say Joker has been around since the 30s, which is true, but he was not what he is until that very famous cover. That everybody's seen, the Joker with the playing cards and the Batman's running away. It says the Joker's back in town. That's really when they reintroduced the character and they really redefined him. They brought him back to that, homicidal clown and really started redefining him.
Maybe you got that, and then you've got The Killing Joke, which is a great book. That kind of cemented his backstory, if you will.
That. I don't know if that really cemented backstory much as it defined him. It gave it gave color to him. It gave more than just a broad stroke definition of him.
I guess I don't know if that's where it originated from, but that's kind of where you always see like the Ace Chemical, him falling into the chemicals and that kind of thing. That's kind of where all that comes from, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, it kind of added all that into it, introduced this idea that he was just a guy who just had one bad day.
Yeah.
And lost it. And it really redefined the character. And then he's just been crazy awesome ever since.
Right. So let's dive into what is so attractive about him. Why, obviously, in the movies, Jack Nicholson, you couldn't have asked for a hotter actor at the time.
Right.
Got the joke is that he got top billing in the Batman movie. And then Heath Ledger's, Joker performance was amazing. Cesar Romero, which everybody absolutely loved him.
Yep.
Mark Hamill in the animated, and then who's ever been doing them lately?
Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio's his was okay.
Yeah.
The guy who's been doing it for the Arkham games, who did it for Origins and has been doing it. Anyways, sounds just like he's the same guy that's pretty much doing Mark Hamill.
Yep.
But why is that character appeal to so many people? And you could argue too that that is one villain that's as known as the superhero. You know, if you line them up, if you show pictures to people, you go, here's Superman, who's his number one villain. Most people are kind of going to get Lex Luthor,
Yep.
but you'll get, but not everybody will know. Nobody knows anything past that.
Yep.
Actually, I would venture to say that more people would say Zod than they would Lex Luthor because of Man of Steel alone.
Based on the new movie, that's fair.
True. Yep.
That's fair.
Metallo, like that's going to be one that nobody else gets.
Right.
I love,
But yeah, all that stuff. Wonder Woman.
But-
Do you know who Josh? Do you know who Wonder Woman's arch enemy is?
Well, it would be Aquaman according to the Flashpoint paradox. So,
isn't it like Cheetah or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's Cheetar. That's the one that was in the Legion of Doom. That's always against her.
mhm.
Green Lantern,
The Orange, isn't it?
Sinestro.
So, yeah.
Sinestro, which
I
that's
thought-
that's another villain that's pretty well known.
I think isn't Sinestro more of an anti-hero than he is a villain?
Recently, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the more recent, he's kind of become more of that misguided anti-hero. But the point being that if people say Batman, the Joker is right next to him.
Yep.
Mhm.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I'm pretty sure I know why the Joker is so appealing to everybody. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mean to speak for you or whatever, but it's because he's Tyler Durden. He does whatever he wants to do, however he wants to do it, and it just comes off as just, it's like no matter what he does, it's cool. It's just, it works. His plans just work. He does, it's like he doesn't have a plan. Once again, to bring up the Dark Knight, like, do I really look like a guy with a plan? He says that, and you think, well, no, he doesn't look like he has a plan. But that's the beauty of it. He does have a plan, but it's so, like, chaotic, and he's got so many, like, contingencies
And it looks
in
like
place.
it comes off so effortlessly.
Exactly. He's
Effortlessly.
He's exactly what everybody wishes they could be. In a sense, we all wish we could just be just, like, whatever. You wish you could blow up that car in front of you on some level. Even if you're a peaceful person, I'm sure at some point you've experienced that sort of rage. You just, like, get out of my way because they're driving slow or whatever. Joker can do that and just gets away with it because he's crazy and he can escape Arkham and it doesn't matter.
Josh.
I guess my answer is kind of conflicting because the reason I think is basically because he was pushed. Like, any Batman thing, the Joker is going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
What if the writers decided he was just going to be, secondary character? But that goes back to, well, why is he pushed? Probably because people like him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know if that can be, a straight up answer or not. I think honestly it goes to the movies. He was so well done that it's like boom, that's the character. Because let's think of some other movies who think of someone who is the main character but someone stole the show.
It really doesn't happen all that much.
Exactly. But with Batman, it happened.
Yep.
Like if I watch the Batman movie, like the Joker parts are the best parts.
Mm-hmm.
Those are parts I look forward to.
That was actually a slight complaint I heard a couple people have about The Dark Knight. Was that Joker had all the best lines and all the best dialogue, and Batman kind of got the short end of the stick in that movie.
He did.
He really did.
He did. That's fair. Also, I think, and this will probably turn some people off, but that's okay. I'm going to sweep with some generalizations. A vast majority, I'd say, of your Joker fans are people who like the fact that he's an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
This is typically your people who are not your captain of the sports team.
Right.
The typical rich, have everything, whatever. The jock, if you will, if we're gonna go to that. Typically, your people that are super into the Joker and with comics becoming as popular as we are, we found out there's a lot more of them than we thought there was.
Yep.
But they're people who socially are a little bit more awkward, people who that can't and or choose not to be a part of the social norm. And like you were saying,
I'm that guy.
I think we're all that guy to a little bit of, a little bit extent. But it's like you said, he can be anything that he wants, and he doesn't wait around for anybody else's approval.
Right.
Well, the other side, going off of what you're saying, is when you're a kid, you want to be the superhero, you want to be Batman, you want to be Superman, but then you grow up and you realize that sometimes the world sucks, and then you get like that dark fantasy, like, where being the superhero, being the good guy, that's not fun.
Yep.
Being the bad guy and being able to do whatever you want, like, that's fun. You know, being bad is cool.
It's much
Tyler
harder.
Durden thing, you know?
It's much harder to be the good guy than
So
it
it's,
is the bad guy.
you know, it's like, and I'm guilty of it. I like villains more than I like superheroes, just, you know, for that allure. Is, you know, they're more badass. You know, like Batman's restricted by his morals and all that, you know, lame stuff. Whereas Joker, he can do whatever the hell he wants. You know, Punisher,
And
he does. You know, he's anti-hero. That's why I like anti-heroes. Deathstroke.
Yeah.
You know, look at that. It's like Deadpool.
And probably part of the thing too is that Joker, out of everybody else, seems to be consequence free.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The Penguin gets the iceberg lounge blown up. You know, Catwoman cares about people. You know, the Scarecrow always somehow succumbs to his own fears. You know, the Joker's the only one that he gets thrown in the asylum, but I mean, he likes the asylum.
Yeah.
Joker only has one thing in the world that he loves, and that's the chase.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know?
And he never has to give that up.
Right.
And the other side too is if, like, all right, let's imagine ourselves as a superhero or a villain. Joker doesn't have an origin story, doesn't have a name. If you want to be, you know, if you want to be Batman, you can't be the Turnus' Batman. You have to be Bruce Wayne's Batman. If you want to be the Joker, guess what? The Joker doesn't have a name, so you can easily become him because it you know, it's kind of like, you know, an RPG. You make your character.
Yep.
You know.
And kind of one thing around that too is I was talking with you, Terrence, and I said one thing that I really noticed about you is you hate it whenever anybody defines you. Like anybody says, this is Turnus, and he's A, B, and C.
Yep.
And you say, well, you know, I kind of have those characteristics, but I absolutely hate the idea of anybody putting me in a box.
Yep.
And I think most people are in that category. Most people don't like, you know, for somebody to look at him and say, oh, he's a nerd, or he's this. You know, people hate labels.
Yep.
And that's kind of the thing about the Joker, too, is that he is labelless, you know?
Exactly.
He's a villain. I mean...
Right, but even... But I mean, at the same time...
What's a villain, though?
Right.
That's true.
He just happens to be on one side of the spectrum.
You know?
Fair enough.
Every villain is a hero in their own story.
Fair enough.
You know, so, I mean, like, Joker wants to get rid of Batman, but that's kind of the thing of it, too. Joker wants to get rid of Batman, but...
He knows he can't.
Somehow he hasn't managed, quote-unquote, to do it yet.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's because he doesn't want to.
Well, yeah, what's he going to do when Batman's
once
gone?
Batman's gone, he's finished, too.
Well, and that's the allure of Scott, to bring it back a little bit, that's the allure of Scott Snyder's new Endgame, is he's saying that this is the Joker. He's given up on caring about Batman because Batman chose his Bat family over the Joker.
Right.
Which every other time, and that's a fair point to say, that every other time he's kind of chosen the villain over his own family.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go through and let's see who... let's kind of go through and let's get the Joker... we'll say the interpretation of it.
Okay.
Now, from when you think of the comics, or what do you think is the best interpretation of him?
The Killing Joke.
You say the Killing Joke. That's your... And this is obviously personal preference. So you'd say the Killing Joke.
I would say overall that would be, I mean, if you're going to define the Joker in the broadest sense of a term, I think that's the perfect way to do it. I mean, Death of the Family was cool and all, but I really think that the Killing Joke brings out who the Joker is. I think if you were to look for an origin story, if any, that would be the book you look for.
Mm-hmm.
Look for
Okay.
then.
Okay, well let's expand that too. Let's not just regulate it to comics. What's the best interpretation of him? I am gonna say Batman the Animated Series, and the reason I say that is because it's all totally personal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Right.
You know, it's totally personal because I like that Joker, the fact that he's funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the absolute favorite thing I've ever seen of him is there's an episode where him, I think the Penguin and somebody else are all on a plane. The plane crashes. He kicks the door open while the plane crashes, or after the plane has crashed, and he screams everybody out. He jumps out. He face plants in the sand, and then his parachute then goes out.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I absolutely love because it's like it was funny to him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that amused him, so that's why he did that.
Let's see. For me, God, that's such a difficult thing. I always talk about how much I hate when people say that like Heath Ledger was the best version of the Joker because he was to a point, but he's not. My favorite representation of the Joker in comics has got to be Batman Rest in Peace.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about him, just his style, just the way he messes with Batman, just everything he does in that book was just pure, like, just unadulterated Joker, you know?
Yeah.
He was just crazy, he's completely psychotic, he's off his rocker, essentially, completely.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, let's take a look then at the movies, because that's what people know most.
Yep.
How do you feel about Nicholson?
He hammed it up a lot. He had the look down. I think he had the humor part down, but the sadistic part was kind of
missing.
It was kind of lost in the humor, I think.
I was never like going back. I mean, I watched the Heath Ledger one first, and then I went back later and watched the Nicholson one. And there was never a point where like I was afraid of Nicholson's Joker.
Yeah.
I was never going to be like, this guy's going to fucking blow up the city. You know, I never reached that point. Like, he was funny. You know, he was definitely a good villain, but he didn't have that shock factor to me.
Right.
Whereas I think that's where Ledger, blew it out of the water. You didn't know what he was going to do next.
Yep.
I mean, that's my vote. Ledger's got it.
And I think, I want to put on that too, I think that him having an origin in that movie is the reason that we lost a lot of fear. Yeah. We lost a lot of that unpredictability because, you're like you said, you didn't really fear him. Well, we knew who he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was a gangster that went deranged.
That's true.
So, we knew who he was. We knew what he wanted. Mm-hmm. He wasn't aimless. He was, he was really just about money, and he was, revenge and money.
Yep.
Was really that character's motivations. And I agree with you guys. I think he was a little old at the time.
Yeah.
The fact that I always thought that's the one part that really bothered me. The origin doesn't bother me because people want an origin. Mm-hmm. They always have and they always will. But the fact that he was a little bit older bothered me. Mm-hmm. But I did like the absolute best part is this town needs an enema.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the love that Joker.
Yeah.
That stuff was all great. Then obviously Heath Ledger, which I don't think we should dwell too long on how wonderful the performance was.
Well, for me, the thing of it with Heath Ledger's Joker is, the performance was great, but the reason why it was so great was because, and this is going to sound obvious when I say it, but I'll have to explain it, because it captured the persona of the character so well. It captured how chaotic the Joker truly is, mm-hmm. which is again is what Batman '89 was missing, and what I always felt animated series had trouble capturing as well. But that's a kid's cartoon; it's a children's cartoon, so you can't have it just be.
Like, he could be zany, unpredictable, but he can't be
chaotic, unpredictable,
destructive, chaotic. Yeah.
So I mean, my dream team of Jokers essentially is going to be Nicholson's appearance, Hamill's voice and tone and like humor with the Ledger chaotic unpredictability and destructiveness. That's the perfect Joker to me.
Yep.
And in terms, we've talked about this before, but I want to bring this up is I thought about it a lot, and I brought up the point to you that in The Dark Knight Returns, you could actually, I think that Nicholson is closer to the Joker because you take away the face paint mm-hmm. and the laugh, you could have called that character anything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, there's the whole chaotic part, mm-hmm. but you could have named him Psycho number 1,
Right.
and and it still would have worked.
Yeah, whereas, I mean, if you look at, like, all right, go Google, open up a new tab, Google Joker cosplay. I don't need to because I already know they're wearing a purple vest and white face paint.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just like the animated series.
The only amendment to that is at the very end, the whole thing with him and Batman where he's like, we're bound to do this for a long time.
Yep.
That was very Joker.
Mm-hmm.
That was, there's not another villain that enjoys that back and forth like he does. So that was very Joker. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot of Joker-esque stuff in there.
Nope.
I mean, there was some, you could say, the slaughter and laughter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just the way he does things. But then again, that could have been Victor Zsasz.
Yep.
Killing people. You know what I mean? Just tweak it just a little bit.
Yep.
It wasn't a Joker-driven thing.
Right.
It really was. Yeah, I agree with that. I still wish the Riddler could have made an appearance in the Dark Knight series.
That would have been nice.
I think maybe, I don't know, the Bane part was nice, but like imagine at the end of the movie, Batman gets slit a box with a glowing green question mark, and like, you have something that might interest you, Bruce, and opens it up and there's a riddle. Like I thought it would be
It's
a great
Jim Carrey the
segue.
whole time.
It was Jim
Well,
Carrey
see,
the whole time.
I think you could recast Jim Carrey as the Riddler, but have him play more the number 21 type character versus
Have him play it straight.
yeah. Like I think because Jim Carrey's serious roles are amazing.
Yeah.
I will say that Scott Snyder's current interpretation of the Riddler is the best anybody has done for him in years.
Yeah.
Like anybody who's reading, go read. What is it? What's the arc they just did?
Endgame or Eternal?
He's in Eternal, but the one before that, Zero
Year.
Yeah, that one puts Riddler back on the rap, makes him awesome in a big bad way. Just
I always liked the Riddler as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Penguin, he's not really much of a villain per se. He kind of just, he's more of a thug,
Yeah.
mob boss than anything. What other villains? Scarecrow, like the Riddler. I think he's up there. with the villains. I really.
The reason for that, I think, is because Riddler poses the worst kind of threat to Bruce, and that's the psychological threat.
Exactly.
I mean, Bruce is already. We can say with a fair amount of safety that Bruce is already pretty crazy.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so to continue to push that on him and push his buttons and try to have him thinking all the time, just.
And it goes on like it really plays on. It plays on that Batman's the world's greatest detective too. Because if you read a Riddler riddle, pause and see how long it takes you to figure it out. Whereas Batman's like, boom, I got it.
Well, if we're talking Riddler riddles, we want to go back to the 1966 television series. You're never going to solve those ever in a million years.
Holy cow! A penguin with a hand grenade.
Yeah, those don't make any sense. What's 12 ounces and very dangerous? A sparrow with a machine gun.
Yeah.
What the fuck, Riddler? What are you taking? Like, seriously.
Me too. We can't base anything off of that movie or the Penguin, but it's still
just,
awesome.
Oh.
But I don't know. I think the Riddler. I would love to see him in another serious role.
Yeah.
Well, there's talking about the Riddler too. I would say that Jim Carrey's Riddler was very close to a Joker.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Very, especially once he got into that suit.
Yep.
Oh,
He was kooky and zany.
he was kooky and zany
perfect.
and kind of, really, really all he was missing was the white face paint.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
we've talked about this before too, Cal, but that's one of my biggest complaints about the last two Batman movies in the first four is like the villains aren't. It's not the Riddler and Two-Face or Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. It's
a psycho with a
psycho with a gimmick.
Psycho with a gimmick.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yeah, but it's not character. It's a psycho with a gimmick,
And it's
Yeah.
really unfortunate that it went that way.
and not Billy D. Williams,
Yes.
which I want to see his Two-Face.
That would have been awesome. I
He
think.
needs to post
Yeah.
of what he was gonna do with that character, because I can't see him being over the top. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
I think he would have been very understated and very deliberate in his deliberation of the role, and he's a great actor,
uh-huh.
Not to slight Tommy Lee Jones, whatever, he did a decent job, but once again, it's a villain with a gimmick.
Yeah, I didn't. I think the
Look at me, I'm drinking 2 glasses of wine at once because I'm so crazy.
And I've got 2 girlfriends too. Yeah, how come they never jumped on that? You know what I mean? Because the Christian leagues, once again, sleeping on us.
Yeah.
This man clearly does not believe in monogamy.
Yep.
I don't care what happened with acid in your face. That doesn't give you the right to shame God.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that interpretation of Two-Face. I think, well, the Dark Knight one was pretty awesome, but I think the Arkham Asylum series, the video game series, portrays him pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What about Mr. Freeze? Do you think he needs to be revisited at all? It's a loaded question because I have an opinion, but
I do too. But it's a bit difficult to say because he's a pretty fantastical character, even with how based in reality he is. The ice gun and all that is pretty. It's a pretty unbelievable element.
Well, the thing that I think with him is he's pretty cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no pun intended if you can make one out of that, but. I mean, he has his backstory.
Lord knows Schwarzenegger will try.
And, you know, I love Arnold's my man, but how do you can't do anything with that character. That wasn't already done.
Well, and it's kind of funny because Mr. Freeze's 2 shining moments are, I want to say, in Batman the Animated Series, and then in Batman Beyond.
Yes,
because it's the first episode that ever aired, Heart of Ice. Anybody who's a real Batman fan, yeah, I'll say it. Anyone who's a real Batman fan knows and has seen it.
Bring it. No,
not really. Which.
You're
allowed to like what you like.
If you haven't seen that episode, we highly suggest you go watch it.
I don't judge you for only seeing a movie, whatever. I don't want to get into it. But yeah, that episode is amazing. The other one, I don't know what it's called, but it's if you see the Batman Beyond one where he comes back, because he's just a head at that point, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he has a body, but it turns out only his head's alive. It's like a robot body or something.
And essentially, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's still him looking for Nora, but that one is all about his validation because he sacrifices himself to save Terry McGinnis because he kind of, and that kind of is heartwarming because he kind of finally gives up. You know what I mean? He finally says, you know, in my madness, I've done so much wrong. Let me do a little bit of right.
Yep. And that's one of the frustrating things about Freeze too is he in his heart of hearts, he just wants to do the right thing. He's trying to save the one he loves.
That's his whole...
And that's fine. And, you know, in the animated series, where they turn down all his requests for research grants, whatever, he's just trying to do the right thing, but he, for whatever reason, cannot get it accomplished. You know, he goes about it the wrong way, essentially. And he gets locked up, and he kind of turns into, like, I guess, to shorten my thing up, I'm rambling on here, would be to say I don't understand how he remained a Batman villain after his first kind of
run
tussle with Batman, because it's like, you know, you'd think Batman would have seen what was going on and said, okay, well, let's maybe give this guy a grant from the Wayne Foundation. Let's help him out. Let's get him some research material. Let's get that going.
Hey, that's what Schumacher did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's George Clooney, for as much damage as he did, that you can say that that's the one thing he said. You know, I'll give you money to research your life.
And that's really where as much as I love the character, where his story should have or could have ended, because it's that's really all there is to it.
Well, that'd be kind of cool. Obviously, in the New 52, the Mr. Freeze is very different.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that would be. But in pre-New 52, that'd be kind of a cool thing where he becomes a Batman ally after he's helped him out and everything, and, you know, if anything, showing up and being like his gadget guy.
Yep.
Because, you know, Bruce has a credible mind, whatever. You know, Wayne, Research Foundation. You just feel like Mr. Freeze could give him things, you know, mechanically that he doesn't know how to build.
Yep.
You know, which that would be... amazing.
It would be nice.
Alright, what are some other Batman villains we can touch on?
So many.
Let's name one. Let's
who's your most underrated?
Probably. I kind of don't want to say it, but I feel like I should.
Do it.
Clayface.
Clayface?
Clayface has a lot going for him.
Hey, which one?
Just Clayface, man. But he's that villain that kind of, that's the great thing about Batman villains is they're all really they're tragic villains. Like Lex Luthor hates Superman because he hates Superman. That's pretty much all there is to it, because he doesn't like somebody stealing his glory.
Right. It's all jealousy.
Yeah, he's jealous, and Lex Luthor could just as well let Superman be and go on and do his own thing and still be beneficial to the world.
And this is kind of off topic, but let me get to this. I just saw on my Facebook feed that there was a story of Horace Grant saying that Michael Jordan punched Will Perdue in 1993. Mm-hmm. And also Steve Kerr, I don't know if he said they did or somebody else brought up the point that Steve Kerr has been punched by Michael Jordan. A bald guy who you could even say, was black in the animated series,
yep.
Who's obsessed with being the best, and at times, does kind of superhuman things. I think it's fair to say Lex Luthor has a lot in common with Michael Jordan.
Absolutely.
Or maybe Michael Jordan is Lex Luthor
maybe.
in incognito, in disguise.
I've seen Luthor on those ball courts before, man. He's got mad games.
Exactly. As far as underrated, I would probably go Riddler.
Yeah.
I think he's the most underrated, and that's just because, the treatment that he's gotten. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're all goofy in the 60s, but I think Carrey's interpretation of him just hurt him.
He's kind of an Aquaman of Batman villains.
Yeah, he just kind of became a joke, and once again, people don't, once again, he's a psycho with a gimmick.
Right.
They don't really see the whole mind behind it.
Right. Well, and I come back to this moment all the time because it's not only one of my absolute favorite Batman moments, but one of my favorite Riddler moments, just moments in comics altogether. But, and Kyle, I know you might not realize it now, but you already know what I'm talking about. And that's at the end of Hush, when Riddler finds out who Batman really is. Because there's just that moment there where Riddler is just so happy, like he finally has the answer to the riddle. He's figured out who Batman is, and he tells Batman straight up, I'm pretty much going to throw this in your face, and everybody's going to know, and you can't do anything about it. And then Batman said, okay, well, I have a riddle for you. What time is it when an elephant sits on your fence? One of my personal favorite jokes aside, but anyways, Riddler goes, well, that's easy. It's time to get a new fence. Are you stupid, Batman? Everybody knows the answer to that. Yeah. Batman just goes, exactly. So who are you going to tell that, my secret identity too, that once you tell anybody, they're going to also know the answer, and that knowledge will be useless to you.
Yep. And
he uses Riddler's own psychiatric complex of being superior against him, and there's so much you can do with that. It's just such a great moment, and Riddler just loses it. He freaks out. He's like, oh my god, Batman's right. I can't tell anybody because then I won't be the only one that knows.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it's just, if they could just have captured that somehow earlier on, like that's what the Riddler truly is to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in 0 Year, Zack Snyder made the Riddler, he made him death traps, and it was the same thing. It was, I don't know if it was every day, but I think it was every day. Basically, he shuts off Gotham from the rest of the world, and he says, every day, one person is allowed to challenge me to either answer my riddle or give me a riddle or something of that effect. And that's what he's doing every day. He says, and when you stump me, that's when you get everything back. You know what I mean? And that's, once again, he's pulling all these strings, and once again, it was a big, complicated thing of how he pulled it all off and how he's keeping, the rest of Gotham away from it. So, just a really great read.
Yeah. Yeah, I will definitely agree with you. I mean, there needs to be more Riddler in the world.
How about we go with some villains that aren't overrated, that you feel are kind of weak? I will first of all say I think the Mad Hatter's a weak villain.
I'll agree with that.
You know what I mean? Outside of his fetish for
young girls.
Yeah. Well, and for his Alice.
Yeah, and his mind control hats.
Yeah. So he's pretty weak.
Well, if we're going to talk about villains that that are overrated and that we dislike, we have to obviously say anarchy.
Anarchy.
Because nobody likes anarchy.
Everybody hates anarchy.
I mean, anarchy is a great concept, in a sense, but terrible execution.
Mm.
Alright, underrated villain.
Yeah.
Hugo Strange. He was the first, I think he, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the first person to learn about Batman's identity.
One of the first for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was the first to crack it, wasn't
Yeah.
I think so.
He has, he has the wits of a Joker or a Riddler. He has the scientific know-how of a Mr. Freeze to create, villains and stuff. But sadly, I mean, he wasn't even killed by, he was killed by some random person. Like, it wasn't even like a villain. Like, it was just like a thug or something that killed him, wasn't it?
Couldn't tell you for sure.
And
Yeah, I
then
don't know.
this is like back in the 70s comics, and then he made a return. He hasn't really made a return in the comics in the
In New 52, no, he's not
in the
really.
game he
hoping-
did, but
I was hoping so hard that he was going to be in Dark Knight Rises when they announced they were doing a third movie. Cause I was like, he's so perfect, because he knows Batman's identity. And he's just...
Here's the one thing though that I've always felt like Hugo Strange was lacking was motive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
that's true.
He's a bad guy, but I've never, and if somebody knows better and has a story for me, I would love to read it. But that's what kind of has always held Hugo Strange back for me is there's never been a clear motive for him. There's never been a super big reason why he does what he does. I mean, he's a super intelligent guy who does bad things, but he's usually somebody's lackey. You know what I mean? He's usually helping somebody out.
That makes sense. Well, that's Hugo Strange. That's what gets my vote.
Right on.
So underrated. We were doing
Not underrated, but weak.
weak.
Week now. Calendar Man, does that count?
Calendar.
So that is, that was another one of those 70s.
Yeah.
Condiment Man.
Well, he's kind of a throwaway.
What about? I can't remember his name right now. I think he briefly appeared in the animated series. He's like orange and black with a spirally face. It's like Paradox Man or some shit.
No, I think you're thinking of Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Possibly.
That's Batman Beyond.
Oh, I can't even remember the dude's name.
Spiral. Yes. Yep.
Spiral. Yeah.
The spirally face. Yeah.
You felt he was weak?
I mean, it's kind of one of those throwaway.
I would agree with you, but I felt he was a good villain for Terry McGinnis.
Yeah.
For a starting out brand new Batman, I felt he was.
Here's
villain.
something else I have to comment on if we're going to be talking about Batman Beyond and underused or underappreciated villains. Fucking Blight.
Blight, yeah.
Like, they set him up to be Terry McGinnis' Joker, and then he never showed up again, except for, I think, in, like, the last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that
what,
was...
What happened there, you guys?
That was absolutely crazy.
That was terrible. That was a horrible usage of that villain. Like, come on. You had everything right there, and you're just like, we'll get it.
Because he killed his dad, right?
Yep.
He killed his dad, and he's pretty much responsible for everything bad that's happening in Gotham in the first season.
Yep.
So I guess he would be the greatest misused one.
Yeah. The greatest missed potential. Lost potential or something like that. You all know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Missed potential.
I would also say I think Killer Croc is kind of a weak villain.
Yeah.
Outside of it, once again, outside of his gimmick.
Well, he's a purely physical threat, which once again Batman can deal with pretty easily.
Yeah, and a lot of times too. Once again, he's usually a crony, or he just kind of shows up because Batman happens to be in the sewers, and he's more so just an obstacle than he really is a major kind of threat.
Yeah.
What about Deadshot?
Deadshot. See, that's the thing is Deadshot has become so much more on his own, away from Batman, that it's hard to call him a lame villain for Batman. You could call him a lame villain for Batman, but he's become such a well-known character that it'd be hard to consider him a failure.
He's so much more than Batman at this point.
He's just his own story.
Well, not more than
Batman. More than the Batman comics. He's not a Batman villain anymore. He's
just Deadshot.
Yeah.
And also, since we're just touching all these random ass rogues gallery characters that are misrepresented or underused, whatever, greatest misconception of any Batman villain ever, I think, is Bane, just because of how he's represented in both of the movies that he's in.
Yep.
Versus how he's represented in the comics, which is freaking amazing. He's like, if you guys haven't read Nightfall, read it. It's awesome. Like, Bane's a super genius, by the way. And in the movies, when Batman and Robin, he was obviously just Poison Ivy's lackey. And then in Batman, or in The Dark Knight Rises, he was amazing. And then in the last, 4 minutes of his appearance, you find out, he was just doing it for love.
Yeah, the comic version of Bane is really...
Bane's not the guy that does it for love. He's the guy that has the master plan.
Yeah.
Well, I would say also, too, though, with Bane, kind of, at this point, he's kind of a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Outside of Nightfall, though...
He hasn't really done much.
Has there been a big... I mean, don't get me wrong, that was a groundbreaking story, and he was the first guy to break the bat, and that gave those comics the injection they needed.
Right.
Because, really in the 90s, there wasn't much happening in Batman.
Right.
Until that whole thing...
And
until that whole thing exploded.
That's what I find so frustrating about it. Is it's because, yes, he broke the bat, but people don't realize on what level he broke Batman. He broke his back, sure, but he also, one of my favorite moments from that arc is after, so basically what Bane does is he decides he's going to break the bat for whatever reason. He blows up the maximum security ward at Arkham Asylum and releases all the prisoners. They all get out at the same time. Because he knows that Batman's one weakness is that he has to track these guys down. So Batman's basically sent on this giant quest to track down all these villains and stop them, and he's going nonstop for, I think it's 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. And by the time he's done, he's at the end of his rope. He's beaten, he's tired, he's exhausted. But before he can retire back to his cave for the night, he has to make an appearance at a party as Bruce Wayne. Bane's watching the party because he's got some ideas or some information. He's looking at all the guests. Takes a look through a pair of binoculars, takes one look at Bruce Wayne, and says, "That's him. That's Batman." And everybody goes, "How do you know?" And he goes, the way he's moving, the way he's holding himself, he's Batman. I just know it." And then so Bane shows up at Batman's house and breaks his back, and he just breaks him mentally and physically. I mean,
so we're saying Bane has the same superpower as Tim Drake and as as Robin in Batman Rises. What's his name?
And Blake.
Yeah, Detective.
Detective Blake.
John, isn't it John Blake?
John Blake. Yep.
John Blake.
I mean, it's one of those things. I just love the idea that he was able to just weaken. Once again, like I was just talking about earlier with the Riddler, how they used his own psyche against him at the end of Hush Huddle. Bane used Batman's own will against him. Because he has to catch these guys, he has to turn them out. He knows that, so he just breaks out everybody at once, and he knows Batman's screwed. And then, to really drive it home, he screws up, Alfred. He breaks in his house, and he breaks his back. I mean, he effectively ended Batman's career.
Here's the thing too is that Bane also is not afraid to pull the trigger.
Right.
Yep.
That is another thing that kind of separates him from a lot of Batman. Obviously, the Penguin, doesn't, because that's not...
Right.
He's a thug and everything, but if he knew who Batman was, he's more of a businessman.
Penguin's not the kind of guy to get the
that dirty. Catwoman clearly isn't going to. The Joker we talked about, he loves the chase of it. Two-Face, it would be very hard for Two-Face to do it too. That's kind of one of the main constants in his rogues gallery is that they all would kind of have trouble killing him, just as he has trouble killing them.
Exactly.
But kind of Bane is different because he's kind of that. Let's do it. Let's kill him.
Bane's willing. He was born and raised in a prison. I mean, how much harder do you get than that?
Yeah,
that's what she said.
From the streets,
but it's just
doing it from the streets.
But there's no time. But that's what she said. But there's no time.
It's just, so I mean, I think that's one of my most frustrating things is Bane is so underrepresented in the Batman universe, at least as far as the movies go, because people, they don't get to see what he really is capable of. And sure, he was a one-hit wonder, but I think we'll take Scott Snyder, because he's working on Batman right now. If you were to take Scott Snyder and you say, hey, give me a great Bane story, he could inject something back into that character that would just make him absolutely amazing again. He just needs to be given that chance.
But let's be honest. Bane's hit was Baby Got Back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it plays at every wedding. You know, it comes up on everybody's comic list.
Clearly.
You know, and it's kind of that same thing too. Everyone's like, oh, jeez, that. You know, it's like, of course, everybody likes that, and then you're kind of, well, there's genius to it, and so I would say that Bane breaking the bat is essentially his baby got back, if you will.
It is.
Where do you go from there with it?
If you're Bane or Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Either or.
Either or.
Sir Bane-a-Lot?
Sir Bane-a-Lot?
Yeah.
Baby got Bane.
Baby got Bane.
Is there any other villains that you want to talk about? How is Poison Ivy represented in anywhere else except for that one Batman movie that never happened?
Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, she's really not. So I haven't really seen Gotham with Ivy Pepper or whatever, but I don't really care to watch that show because it seems...
That's...
shame
on us. We haven't talked about the women. Anyway,
in the Harley, in the Harley Quinn comics, she plays a big role, and that is as Harley's friend. But that's kind of about it. I think. If I'm wrong, someone out there, please let us know.
Have you ever read Hush, Josh?
I haven't.
You really should read Hush. It's amazing.
I should probably read that.
She kind of becomes the goddess of nature.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of becomes a little bit of a counterpart to Swamp Thing.
Yep.
Not obviously not on that level because she's still human. She's not
just plants.
The Green.
She's not planarian worms.
What about Solomon Grundy?
Grundy's Grundy's not just a Batman villain.
Yeah, he's everyone's kind of villain.
Once again, he's a lackey. He's muscle.
He's a physical threat.
Yeah, he shows up to help out other people. But
I will say though, real quick, for Poison Ivy, there was, I think, one episode of the animated series or something like that where Batman was after her, trying to stop her, and he stops her and finds out that the person, quote unquote, that he captured was actually just a complete plant-like creature made up of plants that was supposed to be Poison Ivy, and he tracks her down and finds out she gave up the life of crime years ago, but she didn't think anyone would ever believe her, so she made these clones of herself to kind of keep carrying out her duties, so to speak, even though she's not really benefiting from them.
Yeah, wasn't that the one where the whole family was cloned too?
I think so.
That's a cool episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is. I don't know. Poison Ivy really isn't. She's kind of just a gimmick.
Yeah.
There's never really been any super amazing definitive. She's a femme fatale.
Mm-hmm.
She's a seductress. And actually, outside of the terrible, ungodly, terrible dialogue, she's actually somewhat represented well in that fourth movie.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the character in a nutshell. There's not a lot. There's not a lot more to it outside of
making Batman and Robin fight over her.
So also, just to jump off what Josh said here too, Harley Quinn. She's actually amazing.
Yeah, you think so?
Absolutely.
We could dedicate another podcast to Harley Quinn.
We could. I'll just say this real quick though. I was reading something online recently, and I kind of never thought of it this way. You always think of Harley Quinn as just being a secondary character. She's so submissive to Joker and this and that, but she's actually not. She's actually in complete control, pretty much at all times, in a sense. Everybody knows she's got Bud and Lou, her hyenas. They're like apex predators, whatever. These master dogs that don't respond to anyone. They responded to her with the first command she ever gave them, completely untrained. She took control of them, essentially.
The weird thing I find about Harley Quinn is she's yet to be in a mainstream movie.
Yeah.
But how mainstream is Harley Quinn?
Yeah, she's getting there. But you also got to consider she wasn't a character until the early '90s.
That's true.
she's kind of just now coming to that consciousness as the Joker's girlfriend still.
It is kind of crazy though. She never showed up in that Nolan trilogy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of. Well, was she as super popular then?
No, not really. I think she was definitely. That's more about when she was gaining ground.
Because what was the turning point? What really made her go over?
New 52.
I think having her own comic series really did it.
Do you think the Arkham games too?
I think that was a big contributor to it, but I think once she got her own comic and once the New 52 turn kind of happened and once she left the Joker, when she really people were like, oh shit, she can hold her own.
Yeah. And that's another one too, that she's kind of, she's kind of odd because she's really odd.
Yeah.
But she's kind of odd in terms of there's very much so two different versions of her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and more so than there really is of the Joker.
Yep.
Because there's that caring, loving, nurturing psychopath, and then there's just the straight up killer.
And see, here's something I used to talk about. I do have a friend that is really into Harley Quinn, and we used to talk about her for like huge conversations, just great lengths about what makes her a great character, and you know why we like her and the Joker so much. And one of the things I always said is because what her and the Joker have is essentially real, true love, in its purest, most deepest, darkest, horrifying, awful sense. It's what it is. They're completely each other with one another. You know, like she's loving and caring. She's all over him. He fucking smacks her and like beats her up, or whatever. And she sits there and takes it because she can hold her own against him. You know, like she can beat him around too. You know, she doesn't because she loves him so much, but they're allowed to just be 100% themselves around each other, and there's no judgment between them for that. Which always bothered me when like Poison Ivy was like, "You don't need Joker in your life, Harley. Like you're your own person." I was like, "Yes, that's true. She doesn't need Joker in her life, but she wants him in there, and that's what's important." Like,
but that's that girlfriend thing.
It is.
That's that. Hey girls, let's put a high heel down and go get some cheap drinks. And
we don't need no men.
We don't need no men.
It's okay to want a man. You know, like there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be that girl that wants a man in your life, then have it.
It's
yeah,
okay
Josh.
to want a man.
Josh hates boys.
I hate boys.
It's true.
I hate boys.
The bovine hates boys.
Now trending on Twitter.
How do you feel about the one really, really weird thing I thought about her New 52 origin was that she was not the first one? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
For anyone who's not initiated with the New 52, essentially, I can't remember which. I think it was during the death of the family.
It is.
But the Joker essentially throws Harley into like a deep cavern or something, and we see all these bones, and he alludes to the fact that she was not the first Harley, that he is bleached, because in the New 52 he bleached her skin. It's not makeup.
Yep.
And we kind of got the impression that she was not the first one that he's bleached and made into a Harley Quinn.
The question. Go ahead, Josh.
I can roll with that though, because when you're the Joker, when you're that crazy, as you're seen as the devil's reincarnate or whatever, you're gonna have a following.
Yeah.
You're a cult leader, whether you like it or not. People are going to be, there's going to be sick people out there that are drawn to you.
Yeah.
Charles Manson just got married.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I think in that sense, having multiple Harley Quinns makes absolute 100% perfect sense.
I think that was never revealed to be true, because Joker likes to screw with people. He made her kill Bud and Lou, which was awful. That was terrible. That sucked. Yeah. But then he throws her in this room with all these skeletons. He says, "Oh yeah, you're not the first one." It's kind of like, is he doing that just to mess with her or not? But then you could also say it doesn't really matter, because sure, she's not the first one, but she's the one that's still around.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. She's the one that survived.
Yeah. So she's kind of once again it comes back to that whole she's
alpha.
Destiny's
child. She's the survivor.
Yeah.
She's alpha. She's actually make it.
Every time Joker leaves her behind in some horrible situation, he knows, I think deep down, that she's gonna get out, because she's his Harley. She does that,
Yeah.
She's his equal, essentially.
All right. Was there any other female characters we didn't really?
We can talk about Catwoman, but really, what more is there to say about her?
Yes.
Selena.
I still don't see her as a villain. She hasn't been written as a villain for years.
She's
an anti-hero.
She's kind of whatever she needs to, whatever they need her to be.
Yeah, she's.
Tell you what she didn't need to be. Her own goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't happen.
That's not. None of that was real. It was a dream, you guys.
Well, yeah. I think
let's write a movie around a revealing costume.
Yeah. Ugh.
All right. Well, that brings us to the hour and 9-minute mark.
Damn.
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, just turn us talking about Batman. That's all you need.
I guess.
That's all that happens. Well, let me tell you, it was better than talking about cars.
It was.
And Joker Oracle game or Origin games.
That's for a different cut that you guys didn't hear.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. And all right, that's all.
We're done. Cut.
Mmm, tasty.